sitting here with Barbara Edwards, and for those who do not know her, Barbara is our children's minister here at Chestnut Grove, and you've been here for how many years?
13.
13 years. Oh my goodness, it has flown by.
It has.
So just a refresher for the beginning. For the past few weeks, we have had lots of conversations around being the thunder, and as our fearless response to Jesus' appearance of lightning, and Jesus on the loose, as you put it a few weeks ago, at the resurrection. So we've also prayed and reflected on the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi as being an instrument of peace, sowing love, and I've observed, and I think others have too, that you live this out beautifully here at Chestnut Grove. But I hear there's something else about you that we may not know. It seems you use your gifts and talents outside of Chestnut Grove. Imagine that. How about you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think that probably most everybody uses their gifts and talents in some different ways. But several years ago, I was asked to help with supervising student teachers. And thinking about that, I felt really blessed that somebody would ask me, and so I became an adjunct faculty member of Mary Baldwin. And you have to go through a bit of training, but they obviously felt I was pretty trained with my experiences that I have had. And so for the past probably 6, I lose track of the time, but I have worked with students in their education program, in their college prep program, that are training to be teachers.
Mm-hmm. So that is a little bit outside the realm of ministry to children at Chestnut Grove.
It is.
And families here. So let's go back a little bit and kind of start at the beginning and kind of tell us a little bit about your development in that area of education. And I would say that you're clearly an expert in your field. And tell us a little bit about your experience prior to Mary Baldwin.
Yeah. So from the time I can even remember, in high school even, I wanted to be a teacher. It was just what I was going to be, and I never swayed from that. So I went to college to be a teacher, and I moved to Virginia because that's where I was first offered a position. And so I've taught a variety of things. I started out teaching 4th grade, and then I taught 1st grade. I taught 8th grade science because I'm certified through 8th grade. And then I was a reading specialist. And then through all of that, I went to VCU and got my master's in administration and supervision. And so graduating from there, I became a middle school assistant principal. And from there, I then became a principal of an elementary school. And I was there for, 3 years. And then I became the principal of a 5th and 6th grade school. All the 5th and 6th graders in the county. And I was there for 7 years. And that's where I was right before I came to Charlottesville. And we moved here in '98. So I was hired as principal of Broadus-Wood. And so then I was there from '98 to 2010 for 12 years. Lived in Earlysville. I've always believed in being part of the community where you work. I don't know, for me and my family, that was important to me. And so no matter where I've been, I've always lived in the community where I've worked.
So building on that, giving back to the community and being principal at Broadus-Wood, and you were a very active member here at Chestnut Grove when we were hiring our children's minister back in 2010. That kind of coincides with when you left Broadus-Wood. Tell us about that.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So 31 years in education. I wasn't planning on leaving, to be honest with you. but several God moments happened. I was on the search team for this position, but then I think God intervened in several different ways, and I really felt like this was where I was being called to. And so this was just like a whole new role. And so I've been here now for 13 years.
And it sounds like a new role in some ways, but I kind of see it as you've had all of this experience with working with children and families, just in what we might call a secular role, but to come into Chestnut Grove, working with children and families, maybe in different ways, but still a lot the same, because I'm sure that seems like that would have been the way you lived your life even before coming here. You've had those God moments. So, what was it like working as a principal and with children and families in that way?
Yeah, I was thinking through that and just remembering some of the families at Broaduswood, and when there were twins born that had health issues, and how we then became their community and helped them. And we had students that had one little kindergartner had cancer, and how we supported the family. So I don't think you separate ever the two, secular and Christian. It's just like a way of life is how I think it should be. And I was able to have teachers and faculty members that felt that same way, and we just enveloped families, and so moving here was just sort of that same tradition. It just flowed, I think, and we continue to, as we can, bless the people that we come in contact with, no matter where you come in contact with them.
So when you started out telling me about all the different places where you have felt like that you were using your gifts and talents, you mentioned something that may be a little bit more obscure to us, that we don't know as much about, is your role at Mary Baldwin as an adjunct faculty. So tell me a little bit more about that, and how that came to be, and how you have your experience with that.
Yeah, so as a principal, you hire a lot of teachers, and it's very clear that it's a process to get to be a teacher. And so when I was invited to work with student teachers, I was really excited with that prospect, because I think having myself been through that process, and having had people that mentored me, I had some really great mentor teachers, or I probably wouldn't have survived those first early years. I think it's really important to give back to what you know. And so I usually have one or two student teachers first semester. And so I get to meet with them, and I get to meet with the teacher they're working with. Now, I've also had a lot that have been hired as teachers in their own classroom, and they don't even have a mentor. So I feel like I am their only mentor, and there's been some really wonderful moments with those in particular. And so I meet with them. We go and I'll do an observation, which is fun, but it's the conversations with them afterwards where they get to ask me, or I get to help them, or they share about their life too. My one this past semester was a gentleman, and he was having his third baby and was going out on paternity leave, and so you get to know them. There's some that are just out of college and they're insecure, and you can help them just become more secure by giving them motivation and giving them just ideas on how well they are doing, because their confidence is not what it necessarily should be.
So
when you start out doing something, you don't really know what you're doing, you need that encouragement. So I've had really great success in meeting with people, and getting to know them, and then feeling like you have contributed to them, then in turn being a blessing to children that they will encounter. Because if you can imagine just how many different children a teacher encounters in the course of their lifetime, I mean, you're helping them to do that and to do it well, I hope. So that's always my goal, is to help them to be the best that they can be.
Especially those elementary teachers spend so much time with children.
They do.
Every day. And
Yes.
have a big impact on their lives. So a good start for a teacher is a good start for children.
That's right. And that's, just a beautiful thing, I think, is to know that perhaps you have just a little bit of point in helping that teacher have a good impact on children to come.
Yeah. And I would say that maybe it's the opportunity to rub off on them a little bit, shape them, and
Yeah, you hope
when you
so.
show grace and mercy, and when you treat the student in that way.
Yeah, I have found all of them to be very grateful. They're hopeful, and they are grateful for your advice and for your concern.
So it sounds like this is probably why you do what you do in
It
that
is.
area.
Yeah. I think you're giving back, to what was given to me.
So I'm sure there have been, and you've mentioned a few already, some really rewarding moments. Are there any in particular that you recall that you?
Yeah, so a couple. I think there's actually last semester I had a student that I actually was the principal at Broaduswood.
That's
And
a full circle.
It was. I remember teaching her how to write in kindergarten, as I would visit classrooms, and I remember her so well, and helping her to write the letter of her name. And so then when her name came up and I was assigned her last semester, it was really fun to reconnect with her and to be her supervisor. And she was one that didn't have a mentor teacher. And so it was really sweet to help her to grow and to feel confident and to graduate.
So you're obviously an expert in your field of education as well as ministry here at Chestnut Grove. Why do you think that's important? Why do you think education is important for children? And how do you feel that is kind of living out the call of being the thunder, or being a fearless response, or more like you're Jesus on the loose? I mean, because you're out in all of these schools and places.
Out and about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I always think it's important to grow. I mean, that's what we teach children, is I always tell them, your job is to go to school. Mom and dad have a job, or their job is either at home working or helping you or out in the world, but your job is to go to school. But I think that our job is always to continue to learn as well. I remember when I was feeling God calling me into this position, the Baptist Seminary in Richmond was still going, and I took 2 classes online because I wanted to just get a feel for what they were saying was important, and then I did the Children's Ministry Certificate through the Baptist, the BGVA, and then went to seminary. I think it's just important that kids learn, adults learn, we all continue to grow and learn so that we can be the best that we can be.
So sometimes we kind of compartmentalize our lives, and you said earlier that it's just a way of life, that we think that ministry only happens when we're doing certain things, or when we're doing it in the name of the church, or through the church. It doesn't sound like you see things that way, though. That you see them more, as you said, as a way of life. So how do you see yourself being an instrument of peace and of bringing heaven here on earth? Even though this is not a ministry per se,
Yeah.
you're still doing those things. Or do you see it that way?
Yeah. I think that no matter what your job is, if you do it gently and with love, then that's being Jesus-y. When I do parent-child dedications and I meet with parents, especially with their first child, I always remind them that reading the Bible is awesome and praying with your child is even better. But if you can find ways to have God present here on earth in just your everyday natural setting, that is the most beautiful thing. And so I remind them, it's like when you take a walk and you pick flowers, it's like God made these flowers, and finding ways. When you're riding in a car with a group of people and an ambulance goes by, say, let's just pray for that person on the ambulance. We don't know them, but just being openly present throughout the day.
So God uses ordinary people, ordinary things.
I think so.
To bring His kingdom here on earth, if we are willing to be the vessel.
That's right. Yeah. Today's the day. That was our Lectio. That was my word today in Lectio. Today is the day. Yeah. Every day is the day.
So thank you, Barbara, for sharing these things about you that we probably didn't know as much about. And I think that your work in the world far exceeds what happens here at Chestnut Grove, and we know that God's kingdom is not just here on this little hill as well. So I want to say thank you that you represent the kingdom, the big kingdom, and the big church with a big C, as well as Chestnut Grove in your work that you do everywhere that you are, and that you're representative of love and peace and just living that way of life that reflects Jesus. So thank you, and thank you for sharing this with us.
Thank you. I always find everybody here at Chestnut Grove to be so supportive in lots of whatever we do, and so that's a blessing, and hopefully we all get to bless other people wherever we are.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks.